This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Really appreciate Scottie Bordelon again from Whole Hog Sports joining us live from Destin. Scottie, I'm going to cut right to the chase, man. You've talked to coaches. You've talked with different media members who have sources. What do you think happens with the 8 or 9 game schedule that gets released in the coming days?
You did get right to the point. I think what's probably in the best interest for the league is 9 games. I mean, I know that just covering a team in the league, I would like to see, one more conference game as opposed to, Arkansas playing Western Carolina in the non-conference, So, and I think a lot of coaches in the league feel that way. And, we had in the theater room yesterday at the Hilton Sandestin, a couple of the heavy hitters in the league, Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, came into the room, and they both got asked about the schedule, debate and the models and what do they think is ultimately going to happen. And Kirby Smart was like, it's the most overrated conversation known to man, basically. He just doesn't understand why it's even a debate. Like going to 9, seems right to him, but also he's got, enough talent on his roster to fill, probably another roster in the SEC that could compete pretty well. So it makes sense to him, maybe less so to some of the other coaches in the league. It sounded like from, the appearance that Pittman and Juracek had on Feinbaum yesterday that they kind of favor 8, but, I think a lot of coaches are kind of in that same boat where, just kind of give us our marching orders and we'll, put the ball down and we'll play. I think ultimately 9 will happen. I could be very well wrong, been wrong a lot in the past, but I just think it makes sense for the league to go to 9.
This is Chuck. I've got 2 questions, one and then a follow-up. Where do you think the vote stands right now?
Yeah, I honestly really don't know. We only got in the theater room yesterday, really only got, I think, 6 coaches. And of course it was Kirby and Nick Saban, and one of them was Clark Lee. Shane Beamer was supposed to be there, and he wasn't able to get there. I think he got stuck in traffic and couldn't make it on time to get in the theater room. I'm honestly not really sure right now. Maybe hopefully I'll have a little bit of a better feel after today, and hearing some more coaches speak who obviously they want to serve the best interests of their programs too.
It seemed like just a few months ago this was a slam dunk, that it was going to be a 9-game schedule. People were planning for that. Where did this change? Because it seems like right now, at best, they may come out with a unanimous front, but you have to believe privately there's some real serious disagreement right now. What happened?
Yeah, that is a good question, and maybe a national guy might be the better guy to ask that question. I just think with I don't want to say that the league is like incredibly top heavy, but it is. Like you've got Georgia and Alabama and then LSU on certain years. They've got, overwhelming amounts of talent. And, if you make Vanderbilt or, another lower tier SEC program play another SEC game, I mean, what does that do for them other than, maybe potentially a little bit more money, when the money is distributed. But that's not even guaranteed at this point. I think that may be some of the holdup. I'm not positive. I think there's just you got to look at some of these rosters, I would think. And coaches and administrators are probably pretty realistic with, kind of the depth of talent on rosters. And I think the coaches and the ADs, they want what's best for their school. I think what ultimately is going to happen is what's best for the SEC. But I think, a lot of it probably has to do with maybe the depth of talent on rosters. And, realistically, it's hard for a lot of teams to get through an 8-game SEC schedule, and then you throw in one more game and take out potentially a win in there. That's pretty tough on some of those programs.
Scottie, this is Tommy. A week or so ago, some of the ACC schools, a group of 7, announced that they're on the market, essentially. What are the rumblings or maybe the conversations there in the hallways Greg Sankey pretty tight-lipped on the SEC championship baseball broadcast the other day. What are you hearing there on the ground at Destin about just discussion amongst people in regards to future expansion in this league?
Yeah, it sounds like right now, at least from Sankey anyway, that, he's, I heard him the other day on the baseball broadcast saying that, he hasn't been on the phones discussing realignment or further expansion and that kind of thing. And he's really focused on the strength of the 16. And he kind of echoed that yesterday. And then somebody, I think, asked him, what would make him want to consider further expansion. And he kind of danced around it a little bit. And he said he kind of feels like he has just a responsibility for now to focus on the 16 because they don't have everything figured out for the 16, much less, if they go to 18, that complicates, the things that you're dealing with right now even further, I think. So, I don't, as of right now, I think they're kind of just taking it one thing at a time, so to speak, and they want to get settled with 16, and then after that, I don't have any doubt that they'll consider some schools and they'll look for certain qualities in schools, like that might bring some more competitive balance to the league. I think they've got to get their ducks in a row with 16 first.
Hey, Scottie, in the time we have left, I want to shift gears just for a second. I read your article this morning, and you dealt with the gambling issue. There are public issues that they discuss in front of everybody at these meetings, and then there are issues that they may touch on publicly, but they really delve into privately. I've got to believe gambling falls into that category. You had some good quotes from coaches. What's your sense on the concern within the conference regarding that issue, and how much do you think they're talking about it behind closed doors this week?
I do think they're talking about it quite a bit, and Greg Sankey was pretty transparent yesterday, kind of in his opening remarks when he talked in the theater room. They're bringing in U.S. Integrity, the founder and CEO of that organization, in later this week to give a maybe a broader presentation on just some more information on sports gambling. Like U.S. Integrity does some customized integrity solutions, and we're barely a month removed from the Brad Bohannon deal in Alabama, and I think that right there, the fact that it happened with a quote unquote leader, one of the leaders in the league, I think it perked everybody's ears up that this is a concern beyond just potentially an athlete having an app on their phone and potentially losing their scholarship or their college eligibility over, like what Kirby Smart said, if he gambled on a horse race in another country, or bet on a baseball game overseas, that kind of thing. So it was asked about. If I didn't keep tally, obviously, on the questions that were asked yesterday, but I would think he got far more questions in the 30 minutes that he talked to us about sports gambling, maybe even more so than the scheduling model. It was really interesting. And then the coaches, like Kirby Smart was even asked one time, would you be in favor of your guys being able hypothetically to bet on or gamble on games that they're not involved in, like the NBA? And Kirby was like, to be perfectly honest, I would hope that our kids would want to spend any income that they consider expendable, like you just spend it, use it elsewhere, to potentially save you from any trouble. But yeah, I mean, and Nick Saban talked about too, they've got these player development programs that they go to, and gambling is part of it too. They kind of lay out all the consequences for pretty much every action, including gambling. And I think gambling, just because it's so accessible now, it's legalized in more than 30 states now. And I know, I've got an app on my phone for it, so why couldn't any other student athlete in the country? So it's a really big deal. I would guess it was maybe the most asked about thing yesterday, but obviously the hottest topic was the scheduling, but gambling was right there behind it.
Scottie Bordelon is our guest. Again, Whole Hog Sports, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Scottie, you mentioned kind of paralleling the gambling aspect with the 8 or 9 game schedule. I know coaches are also on the forefront of talking about the portal and NIL. You referenced some Eli Drinkwitz quotes in another piece you wrote for Whole Hog Sports. How are they going to navigate the recruiting aspect of that but actually give their public opinion on that? How do you balance that as a head coach?
Yeah, I don't really know. I think everybody is probably using, NIL obviously to further their recruiting. And it was funny. I sat in the theater room yesterday when Clark Lee from Vanderbilt was in there, and he said that they don't really use NIL in their recruiting. Like they'll kind of throw NIL at the kids once they get to campus. And I think, pretty much I would guess a lot of other schools in the league are the opposite. But yeah, it's a good question. I don't know that I heard just that I personally heard just a ton of talk about NIL yesterday. Maybe I sat in when the wrong coaches or at the wrong times, but NIL is such a huge deal, and I think Kirby Smart and Nick Saban both at some point yesterday said, college sports is getting so professionalized right now that you're kind of losing the grassroots of why you got into this thing. But they're kind of, if they want, since this thing is kind of shifting toward professional sports anyway, I think a couple of the coaches were like, why not go ahead and unionize and just kind of standardize everything for everybody? Maybe level the playing field a little bit.
Scottie, we'll leave it there this morning. Again, Scottie Bordelon, Whole Hog Sports, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, kind enough to join us live from Miramar Beach in Destin. Scottie, enjoy yourself. I know it's going to be hard down there with the bright sunny rays and the Sunshine State, but have a good time. Try and get get a tan down there in addition to doing a little bit of work.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm looking at the ocean from the balcony right now, so it's
Poor you. Poor you, man. All right.
I'm looking at the parking lot.
Yeah. So a little different view.
BetOnline.ag is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest player reports for this year's pro basketball playoffs. BetOnline is always your sports information headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your sports wagering needs. Basketball, MLB, NHL hockey, right down to UFC and boxing. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games you can play right from your home. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BLEAV. BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts.